Hi YouTube, Watchify here with another video. So since I did eventually pick up a pre-owned 38mm Seiko SKX013, I'd like to make the obvious comparison to the just released 38mm 5KX SRPK models in case you really like the design of these watches but aren't sure whether you should go with the discontinued SKX013 or accept some compromises and pick up the newer SRPK model. Although discontinued, you can still get your hands on an SKX013 if you wanted. They can be found on the pre-owned market, and if you look hard enough, you should be able to find one in good condition for around 400 to 450 US dollars. The newer SRPKs are easier to find, and this black dialed SRPK29 can be found selling for $260 new. That's a pretty significant price difference, so why would anyone go through the trouble to locate and pay more for this SKX013? For starters, the main difference between these two watches is that one is 200 meters water resistant and the other is not. The SKX013 is an ISO rated diver, so it has a solid screw-on case back, a screw-down crown, and a Lume pip on its bezel insert. The SRPK29 is water resistant to 100 meters, has a see-through screw-on case back, a push-pull crown, and no Lume pip on its bezel insert. I don't imagine that many people are diving with the SKX013 nowadays, much less diving down to a depth of 200 meters or 656 feet. So the ISO rating and the extra water resistance could just be something reassuring to people that take their watches into the water. The movements on these two watches differ in that the SKX has the Seiko 7S26 automatic movement, while the SRPK29 has the newer 4R36 movement. They both have similar specs of 40-hour power reserve, 21,600 beats per hour, and a day and date complication. The 7S26 has 21 joules in the movement, while the 4R36 has 24. So that, along with the fact that the 4R36 allows for second-hand hacking and hand winding, are really the only differences. To some, being able to hand wind and stop the second hand is an important feature of a mechanical watch. I would consider myself one of those people, however, I don't think it's a critical feature, as it doesn't take much effort at all to get a stopped 7S26 movement going with a few vigorous shakes. Every mechanical watch gains or loses time during the day, so even if you precisely set the second hand to a known time source like an atomic clock, for example, it's going to be out of alignment the following day. What matters is the hour and minute hands when setting and reading the time. What it comes down to is that the 4R36 is just newer and has a couple features that the 7S26 doesn't have, so there really are no downsides to opting for the 4R36 over the 7S26. Visually, from afar, both watches' dial and hands look similar to each other. When you get close though, you'll see that the second hand on the SKX013 is a different style with a loomed arrow about midway between the tip and the pinion section. I actually prefer this hand style over the more common one seen on the newer model. The indices are outlined in silver on the SRPK, while on the SKX013 they just have a white painted outline. The minute hand on the SKX tapers and has a separation at the arrow tip, while the newer model's minute hand does not. You get an applied Seiko logo and printed Seiko 5 badge on the newer model, while the SKX Seiko logo is painted on. You get the famous orange divers 200 meter wording on the SKX, while in that area the SRPK has the word automatic in a cursive font. Chapter rings are very similar, but I see that the 5-minute markers are thicker on the newer model. A Lume comparison test shows the newer model's Lume is slightly brighter after 10 minutes. Both are above average though, in my opinion. The unidirectional rotating bezels are both 120 click and have the same shape and style, but the SKX bezel looks slightly taller to the naked eye. The bezel inserts depart in that the newer SRPK only has dots from 0 to 20 rather than all the way around on the SKX. They both come with a flat Seiko Hardlex mineral crystal, although this SKX was upgraded to a sapphire one due to having been scratched. I'll put the case measurements for both watches up on the screen. They both have identical case sizes at 37.8 millimeters, and they both have 20 millimeter lug widths, but the lug to lug distance is greater on the SKX, as is the case thickness, which is larger by almost a millimeter. On wrist, both watches wear well on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. When it comes to bracelets or straps, the newer SRPK29 comes with a metal bracelet that has hollow end links and a pressed metal fold-over clasp that has 2 micro adjustment holes. This SKX013 I got is on an aftermarket bracelet right now, but originally came with this rubber strap that I don't particularly like, but I know that some do. Others come with a Seiko Jubilee style bracelet that also has hollow end links and a pressed fold-over clasp. As a Seiko collector, if I had to choose between these two watches, I'd choose the SKX013. I don't mind the older 7S26 movement, and I always like seeing the Seiko Wave logo solid caseback. They are harder to find since they are discontinued, and that is part of the appeal to a collector like me. If I were a regular watch consumer though, I would of course pick up the newer SRPK29. It costs less, is easier to find, has a more modern movement, and I won't deny that I like being able to see the movement through the caseback. It's the clear choice for those that like this Seiko case design and need it to be in the smaller 38mm size. Yeah, it has less water resistance and isn't a true diver, but it's gonna be able to handle most anything you throw at it and is a perfectly fine daily wear watch for 99% of people out there. That'll wrap up this video. I hope you found it helpful or interesting, and if you did, feel free to leave a like, comment, or even consider subscribing. I of course wanted to thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in another video.